Welcome to TipHaus Office Hours, our payroll edition. My name is Michael Corson. I'm the manager of customer success here at TipHaus. I'm coming in today from South America. I'm located in Colombia, so Central Time Zone. Little bit of housekeeping before we get started in our main topic today. Feel free to chat live with us. You'll see a chat right there front and center. Go ahead and just let us know who you are, where you're coming in from. I think we have quite a few people joining up today. We'd love to hear a little bit about you. If you have account-specific questions that come up as I'm talking, or that you have prepped and ready to go, feel free to put those in there as well. Some people will be in here kind of answering questions as we go. The kind of big interesting thing about office hour sessions is that we can actually pull you up onto the stage with us after my main presentation, and we can talk through your account. If you're open to that, we can hop into your actual live account, and everybody can kind of learn from each other's issues, and maybe some ideas that you have might spark some ideas for some other people. But really just a chance for us to kind of have an open forum about payroll today. So we'll be doing these different topics kind of every month. If you do need a one-on-one session, or maybe your question comes up and I feel like maybe we do need to hop into your account, we can always still do one-on-one sessions. By no means is this your only way of getting in contact with us. We can still book one-on-one chats like we always have. So what we're going to be talking about today is going to be walking through payroll processes and mainly how to streamline them. So you may be in a situation where maybe every week or every 2 weeks you're coming up on payroll and you're dreading it, and you know that you have to do employee paychecks and make sure time tracking is all in order, and now TipHaus is on your list. I have some hopefully useful information for you, some things that I've learned over my last two and a half years with TipHaus about what makes a payroll process that is streamlined, that is easy to get through, and that it's not something you're going to be dreading every time. So just to recap, an average TipHaus payroll process, and when I say average, I mean not using our Earned Tip Access program. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, but it's not going to be our main focus. We're also going to talk a little bit about tip credit. So if you're in a tip credit state, we will touch on it, but again, not our main focus. When I say average TipHaus payroll process, I do mean putting employee tips on employee paychecks at the end of each pay period. So in TipHaus, there are a few things that need to be done before you're ready to go with payroll. I'm going to show you just different things at each step that may be easy for you to streamline, or maybe easy for you to get into a better rhythm with. So when we talk about the first step about payroll, it's going to be eyeballing the breakdown page and making sure that the adjustments are made in your POS, or at least that the adjustments are made in TipHaus so that the calculations are correct and what you are going to send off to your payroll company are going to be correct. Now, there's a little bit of streamlining here, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. The biggest thing is going to be identifying where you can find repetitive things that you're doing every time, right? So if you say, every payroll period, I come in and I forget that I have to fix my missed clockouts, and I have to do the same event adjustments and those kind of things. Identifying those, getting prepared for them, maybe planning a couple that you can do for the majority of the pay period, maybe the day before, all those kind of things that kind of ease the pressure of a payroll crunch off of your shoulders. Really, really good to do, and can help make the whole process a little bit more enjoyable. Number two is actually taking care of those unique issues, unique sales. This is where, those things that you're finding that are repetitive, it's great to plan for them, great to understand that, I know I have to do this, this, and this each payroll cycle, but also really, really good if you can see what's being repeated and then maybe reach out to us and say, hey, I'm finding that I'm clicking the same 3 buttons every time to get rid of these invalid take-home messages. I'm clicking the same 3 buttons every time to deal with these unique event sales. Reach out to us. We might be able to automate some of it, or maybe even all of it. And that's probably the biggest piece here. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Once you actually take care of those issues, we're going to talk a little bit about resyncs. Now, resyncs are undergoing a pretty big overhaul here at TipHaus, with the interest of getting your data into TipHaus. So when you do make changes to your POS data, that we get it in the fastest possible way. While we're making those updates, I'm also going to show you some kind of best practices to make sure that you're not waiting on resyncs to take a long time while you're in that payroll crunch kind of zone. And then last but not least, export from the breakdown. Most of you know this. We pitch it on just about every onboarding, or at least every onboarding session I've done. If you onboarded with me, you probably remember me saying, we can make any kind of payroll export that you need, so long as it contains the information that's inside of TipHaus. We can include that on a report. We can even do some custom columns. We could display blank columns. We could really prep this thing out for you so that it's as easy to take out of TipHaus and drop where you need it as possible. We're always open to making these things better for you. So I'll talk a little bit about what's possible there. And maybe, some of you are out there and you'll say, wow, instead of having to drop this in the Excel and do manipulations first, maybe I can just get it straight out of TipHaus and maybe the exact format I need. If we can do that, it is always the kind of the best possible scenario there. So we're going to go into that, and then we're going to talk a little bit about this effortless payments section. If you're in TipHaus right now and you're thinking, ooh, I didn't know there was an electronic payout tab, definitely click the ETA tab and request a little conversation. We can talk about Earn Tip Access, what it looks like right now, what it's going to look like in the future, and we'll touch a little bit about what this means for payroll. But before we dive into this, I want to just hop back into a real account and kind of talk a little bit about what this looks like in terms of step 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to share another screen that has my real account in it. If you've been to one of our webinars or one of our office hours before, you're probably pretty familiar with my Michael Corson ETA demo account with its 3 locations. We got Bogey's Bonanza, Quixote Valley, and Seagull Stacks, a few fictional restaurants that I manage here for these kind of purposes. We focus just on this Bogey's Bonanza restaurant and focusing on how we can streamline their payroll. So if you think about that step 1, cleaning up the data, making sure things are good to go, the best practice here is going to be coming straight to the breakdown page and filtering immediately for the last pay period. So right off the bat, you can see we have an invalid take home. Now, I've already done some of the streamlining before we hopped on this call. I made really sure that the day before this payroll period needs to be completed. So yesterday I came in and I made sure that all employee clock-ins and clock-outs for 24th through the 30th were completed. TipHaus has synced them in. Everything's looking good. All employee hours that need to be in here for good calculations are in here. And that's going to be kind of step number 1. You can do that kind of stuff as much as possible before your actual payroll date. Then you can be pretty sure that when you come in here, you might be doing invalid take-homes for the whole pay period. But you're only going to be really worried about clock-outs maybe from the previous day. So making sure that you minimize the amount of data that you're going to have to do while you're in that payroll crunch time can be really, really useful. If you can take care of the invalid take-homes as well, it's going to make your payroll day a breeze. So coming in here, making sure that everything's looking good, really important. Now, let's say you did see a missed clock out, or you notice, hey, there should be a Bob on the list and I don't see Bob here. Maybe Bob forgot to clock in and out. You can definitely go into your POS. You can input that information. If you're in a payroll crunch, that's where you're going to want to do it, because you're going to want to make sure their wage data is important for other reasons outside of tips. So make sure that it's in TipHaus and in your POS is the way to go. So make the changes you need to do in your POS. As soon as you make those changes, go ahead and click the sync button and sync back only as far as you need to, right? That's going to get things started, and you can kind of wait for that data to come in while you're doing the other invalid take-home pieces. So really quickly, just coming in here, coming to the breakdown, taking care of missing data, taking care of anything you can ahead of time, really, really useful. Next step is going to be diving into these kind of invalid take-home issues. If you were at our last office hours, this kind of segued pretty nicely from that one. We have kind of 2 event types here at this location. Event type 1 is completely automatable. So we went ahead and we said, everything we're going to need to be able to come in here and not have to worry about event type 1, it's already happening through the rules, and it's already working exactly the way we want it. Now, event type 2, it changes day to day. So, the server that works on that event type 2 is going to change every time. Some of you are probably thinking, yeah, that's the way it works at my restaurant. That can't be automated unless that person can, clock into a special event job code. So you let us know who is working that event. That's not always possible. So we are going to have to do some adjustments here. Being aware of what kind of adjustments you're going to need to make and just being ready for it, really crucial. Again, if you can do this ahead of time, really useful. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the invalid take home. A lot of people miss this step. You can not only click on the invalid take home and get some cool information about what's going on here, you can also kind of click on this clipboard. I have to make an adjustment to make sure that the remaining $71 don't stay with this event employee, they go to a real employee. So what I can do is I can use these hyperlinks and get right where I need to go and say, okay, I have sales that I need to adjust. What you need to do in this case, is go to custom team adjustment, select all the sales, and basically tell TipHaus, hey, you're going to give out some of these tips through the standard rule set, but the servers who actually work the event are going to be Aida and Anderson, let's say. We review, we enable the standard tip sharing rules, and we submit. Custom team adjustments are going to happen. All the people who need to get tipped out are going to get that money. The rest is going to go to Anderson, and it's going to go to Aida. We can come back over here, and TipHaus is automatically going to start thinking about this kind of stuff. So when we talk about syncing and how this kind of stuff works, anytime TipHaus is thinking, rules processing is going to be going on right here. And so when rules processing is going on, it's thinking and saying, okay, I had $71 to give out, and it gave it out that fast. Now, invalid take home hasn't gone away here, but if I refresh my page, it's going to look a lot better. Sometimes the demo accounts are a little bit funky, but I do believe that this portion does work the same as in your standard account. So now if I look at that event 2, take home here is empty, and I'm ready to go. I have no missing clockouts. I have no invalid take homes. And the best thing is I didn't have to hit the sync button. If you were to hit the sync button, what you're really asking TipHaus to do is to go grab those shifts, to go grab those sales that are missing and kind of bring those in. When you adjust a rule in TipHaus, or when you make an adjustment to a sale or a batch job code adjustment or whatever that might be, or edit a shift, TipHaus doesn't need to go ask your POS for new data. We just say, hey, there's new data in the system, just recalculate that. And you can see how fast that happened. So if you make a custom team adjustment and you're clicking sync and you're finding, oh, I'm waiting a long time, once you make the custom team adjustment, just come here and wait for that rules processing to go. It'll go a lot faster for you. So if you're in this part and you say, yeah, this all seems familiar, Michael, I'm doing this kind of stuff already, I notice that I'm clicking the same buttons every time and I'm always doing this event type. This is where like recognizing those patterns and recognizing what you're doing and recognizing where those problem spots are. Anytime you see yourself doing something manual in TipHaus, think about, could this be automated? And it won't be possible every time, but a lot of times it will be. Event 1 here, it's always the same general server list that works that event. So if there's an event type 1 in this kind of scenario, it's the full server list that gets to cut from it. So we were able to automate that out through the rules. So it might be one of those situations where we said on your call, hey, pay attention to what's working, what's not working. We can tweak this as time goes on. We really do mean that. So if you find that, hey, maybe it's time to tweak something, maybe it's time to see if we can automate some extra stuff out, great time for a one-on-one chat, or great time to come up on the stage. So put something in the chat there and say, hey, I want to talk about this as a group. Okay, resyncing. So you've made some adjustments in the POS, you've made your adjustments to your invalid take homes, you're uncertain, hey, is TipHaus going to grab this information or not? If you're doing this through the pay period and you're making adjustments in the POS to shifts through the pay period, you're not going to find a ton that you need to do on the day. If you do need to click the sync button, we are working very, very hard. One of our main focuses right now is improving sync times, and we're looking to drastically improve them. And also to, rather than give you a kind of vague rules processing indicator, to give you some more information on what's actually going on in syncs. And both those are pretty big projects, but they are front and center for us. While we're doing that, to kind of make sure syncs happen as best as they can, only syncing back to the date that you made your most recent change. So if you had, a shift change on July 30th, just clicking July 30th and going back that far, much quicker than going back to July 24th and having us resync all of those days. That's probably the biggest one. We see a lot of people, they say, hey, the data looks perfect, but just in case, I'm going to do a full pay period resync. You definitely can, pardon me, but it is going to take some time. Pardon me, got a little bit of tickle there. Another thing you can do is, if you're syncing multiple locations, maybe you didn't make changes at Quixote Valley or Seagull Stacks, so don't resync those two. Kind of asking for less information is a really good way to save time. Pardon me. So we've resynced, we've done all that kind of stuff, and now we're moving into exports. So when we talk about exports, I'm going to share a different screen here. And when we talk about exports, what we're really talking about is homemade reports from here. Don't skip on this step. If you're just coming in and getting the breakdown report with all those columns, you're probably getting a lot more information than you need. We can give you kind of custom payroll exports. So what custom payroll exports look like are just the information that you want to see. We can put in whatever columns you want. We can put in whatever payroll IDs, take homes, whatever we're grabbing from your system or whatever's in TipHaus that we can put into a column, we can put in here for you. We can also do things like custom columns. So we could add 2 columns together. We could subtract 1 column from another, 2 or 3 columns. We can do that as well. We can also give you blank columns that maybe just display a static figure, or maybe it's just truly blank. We can rename these. So maybe, first name and last name is great, but payroll ID is actually called something else. Maybe it's called employee ID in your world. So that's fine. We can call it employee ID. We can do as many of these as you like. So maybe you need 1 for accounting, 1 for payroll, 1 for your management, 1 to look at different data points, all possible stuff here. So when you come in and you find yourself exporting a breakdown report and then removing or ignoring most of the information, great time to reach out to us and say, hey, I might need a custom report. Now, I'm going to move back here, one last screen change and show you a slide here. And kind of talk a little bit about what tip credit looks like and a little bit about what ETA looks like. And earned tip access and tip credit is not the main focus of this conversation. We will focus on that on other dates and other webinars and office hours. But talking about earned tip access first, what this is a payout option. And I see quite a few people say, hey, I really like the idea of earned tip access, but I don't want to complicate my payroll any more than it is. So I want to pay my staff out early, but I know that some of my staff are going to want their tips on paychecks. So what does that look like? It sounds complicated to me to, make 2 reports and submit 2 payroll reports and double everything up. This works really, really well. And what we do when we're kind of doing these kind of ETA payroll reports is we just turn it from a 1-column approach to a 2-column approach. So rather than showing the take home that everybody's on their paychecks, we show 2. We say, how much has people been paid out on these cards? So if they've gotten paid out on our house money card, or they've linked a house direct card and they're getting paid out to their existing bank account, it shows exactly how much they've been paid out. Now, amount due is going to show anything that's left over. What else needs to go on paychecks? This works extremely well, and it handles every single situation you can think of. So maybe you termed an employee and they got their first 3 days of that pay period paid out on cards. Yeah, but their last payout you need to put on the paycheck. Not a problem. It's going to be right there in the amount due payout. It's going to show exactly how much they haven't been paid out. Maybe you have somebody come in, they get paid on cards for the first 3 days of the pay period, and then they opt out. Well, it's going to show exactly what they got paid out, and it's going to show exactly what they're going to be due. So your whole payroll process is exactly what I just described to you, with kind of 1 extra step. So you go in each day, you click the payout button, and then you run your single payroll report at the end of the pay period. So if you've been holding off on earned tip access because it seemed like it might make your payroll more difficult, I can assure you that it won't. We also have some awesome earned tip access improvements coming. So we've kind of gone through version 1 of the product. We understand what people want, what people would prefer to see. We understand where we can improve our employee benefits and that kind of stuff. And we understand how we can do it without being a big lift on businesses. So if you're thinking about earned tip access, great time to come talk to us about it. We can show you what's coming. Now, earned tip, let's talk about tip credit states really quick. Very similar to normal payroll, but basically in a tip credit state, you would have a minimum wage that the employee has to hit with tips included. So, maybe the employee has to make at least $10 an hour once their tips are factored in. But if they don't hit that $10 an hour, the business has to raise their minimum wage to make sure they do hit $10 an hour across the board. Now, TipHaus doesn't do like a tip credit feature. The reason being is we have a very, very nice report feature in here called take home per hour. So when you're doing tip credit, if you're finding that that's your pain point, come in here and turn on take home per hour. And on the breakdown page, if you're showing that expanded view, you'll see it right over here. It's going to show you, based on whatever date range you have. So if you needed to see, like, do they hit that every day? You can see exactly, how much are they taking home per hour every day in tips, kind of combining that with their hourly wages, which TipHaus doesn't pull in wage data in its current form, but kind of saying, hey, I know what their minimum wage is. I know what they're making in tips each day. Can kind of make that easier. So using this take home per hour code to your advantage, and then exporting. When you export, you can do this by date. So you can see that same value for each employee listed out each day they work, and kind of make sure that you're kind of getting to your tip credit information as quickly as possible. Will help make your life a little easier as well. All right, that's enough of me talking. Before we move on to kind of bringing people on stage, remember, feel free to ask. We can talk about your own individual issues here together. If you want to plug some upcoming things, go ahead and scan this if you're interested. On 8/20 at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we're going to have our next office hour session. This one's going to be on the employee app and kind of everything that you would need to know about the employee app, plus whatever questions you have about the employee app. That's kind of the idea for this one. So I'll leave it on this page for a little bit. If this is something you're interested in, you want to hear about the employee app and what we're currently doing, maybe what that looks like for a new tip access sign up, whatever it might be, we'll cover it for you. So go ahead and scan that. Keep an eye out for it. We're going to be sending out invites and that kind of stuff, and then letting you know about this as it comes up. We also have our next full webinar. Webinars are a little bit different than this kind of open forum that we're about to get into. Webinars are more for me to go into a deep dive about new things. And we have a giant new thing for you. So if you haven't been to your settings tab in the client dashboard recently, we have some awesome new features that allow you to create custom roles with custom permissions. So maybe you've always wanted to have a org admin that could only access one of your 10 locations. Or maybe you've always wanted to have that one general manager who should really just be able to, really just be able to see the breakdown, but nothing else. You can do that now. You can do that in all kinds of cool ways. And we're going to go into every little bit of that feature and show you exactly why we built it, how some of our customers are using it, and how you might kind of target specific roles to different pieces of your business. So go ahead and scan that one if you'd like. And without further ado,